space program, where we are here at KGS-1, as yet to be fully assembled, and over here we have the launch pad that we were trying to hook up to it at the end of last episode. As you noticed, there were problems with that, some of them due to the fact that I believe this is misaligned and such, and some of them due also to the fact that there's a really weird functionality with this, and among other things, it's completely useless in orbit. We can't do anything with it, so I'm probably going to just point this thing at its own grades, and just have it burn into a crashing orbit to deorbit the thing. So, well, let's see, we've got another hour and a half before it reaches its apoapsis. So we'll just shift it away from the actual station right now. It should have enough fuel in it to get away. Just go over that way, please, because I don't need you around. And you're just going to be a pain if I leave you around. Let's see, oxidizer 58, what's its 218 meters per second of delta V remaining, so we can probably deorbit that. And if not, I can send something else later to refuel it a little bit and have it then deorbit itself even more. Okay, let's turn that light off. Because we've got the sun at our backs, so that should do nicely. Right, so, lying around out here, I have 3 components that we can use. We have a converter core, which will connect to our, which will connect quite happily, as I've tested it, which is basically a pair of heavy converter units which will turn Kethane into all sorts of stuff. And I also happen to have a power core, which has a huge volume of battery, 32,030, as well as a bunch of radioisotope generators and a big, all of these units have gigantoids on them, which by a small miracle managed to survive it here. Eesh. And I also happen to have... where are you? There we are. We have crew quarters. So inside here we have Kerbals and Melwyn, who are having the time of their lives, I can imagine. And we have some lights on here. And we got a capacity of 8 people with these hitchhiker storage units. And we also have a bunch of winches, which I've purposefully disabled the key control on because it's a right pain in the hindquarters. But we can have Kerbals on the EVA grab one of these connectors, and we have one for everyone that could be inside of here, so that's good. And then that will allow us to make sure they don't drift off into space, and they'll be able to get back on quite happily. So our job today is to dock these parts to the station. So let's start off with the power core. And I've installed this very small little mod called Docking Alignment Indicator, which allows us to have a complete, perfect view of how things are. The one slight gripe I have of it is that up and down is not inverted, but left and right is. I'm currently controlling that little tiny piece, the big orange piece in the middle there. And its controls are a little bit of a pain because they're some are inverted and some aren't, but it's not that huge a deal. And I need to spin. That's what the arrow at the top means, or hopefully would be at the top. Okay, a little more that way, a little more that way. Okay, and now I can use the linear controls to move those green lines, and those green lines are where we are relative to the position of the docking port that we're targeting at the moment. So I need to get those lined up in the middle, and basically once you've got everything lined up in that center piece, you thrust forward, hopefully not too fast, you'll smash the docking port you're aimed at, and you'll dock, is the idea. And I just give that a bit more welly. Okay, she's moving now, that's good. And the little yellow thing is sort of your velocity, so you can correct things and control where you're flying off to. Okay, and we are moving in now, bit by bit. I'm trying to get it aligned on one axis before I worry about the other one. Okay, moving in. Oh, there's our shadow just passing over the station. One thing I did discover when I was doing this, when I was setting up to film this, is that in fact we're out of fuel on the station. I'm not sure how that happened, but we'll have to get some Kethane up here at some point, and a radial docking port. I found out in testing that this isn't actually connected to this, so even once I've got the converter unit and whatnot on top of it, it's not actually going to be able to put any more fuel into that rocket. So I'm going to have to shoot up or somehow get a radial docking port, which can be dismounted by our Kerbals, and have that get attached to that tank down there, which will then allow us to actually plug things into things that don't normally have those connectors, which is a very handy little addition by the Kerbal attachment system. And oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Okay, we're nearly in alignment here. Just going to choose cam mode a little bit. Okay, we're almost there. Just about. I think that'll be enough, so let's increase our relative velocity here. And while that's going on, let's check if the actual station itself has SAS on. Yes, it does. We need to turn that off. Come back here. Set that as our target again. And now we need to wait. I think it's up until about 12 on our distance there, 12 meters, that we can have the SAS on, but the problem I've found out is that there's a bug, potentially a bug, no one's really talking too much about it, with the SAS, which is that if either aircraft that are in a docking procedure have it enabled, I'm just going to turn it off at 15, it interferes with the way that the docking works, so the magnetism between these ports doesn't work for some reason. There's our converter core in the background there. And now I've got SAS disabled, so our orientation is now dead in the water. So all I can do is control how this works otherwise, which is the linear controls, up, down, left, right, that kind of thing. Forward and back. Oh, come on. Okay, oh, we're rubbing, that's good. So we'll just leave that to its own devices for a bit. And it should eventually, yes! We have our first docked piece. So let's re-engage SAS so this thing can stabilize itself. And let's get that Gigantor out. So that is power supply, delivered to Kerbal Geosynchronous Station 1. And look at that charge. We could do practically anything with that amount of charge. And that should be enough to sustain it even when it's behind Kerbin on its orbit now, so it should never have any other issues with running out of charge, which means we'll always be able to do what we want with it. And I also, on this unit, I added some radial connector ports. There we are. So if anyone needs to, we can plug in directly to this and just recharge massively quickly. Very good. Okay, so next up, we have the converter core. So control from the docking port. Engage those, and that is our station, KGS-1. So let's just target that quickly, and thrust towards it. And when we get closer in, we'll be able to actually select the docking port that we want. We only have 3 units at the moment, and there are 4 that go at the top of this, each with their little Gigantors at the end, and all of them roughly the same size as each other. The crew quarters is a lot bigger, just because I couldn't make it any smaller. Crew quarters is also the only one that has any lights on it, which is less than helpful, I admit. Well, and they're also mostly built around this core of RCS control, which allows us to properly control how these things fit together. Let's go a little bit this way. Okay, so that one's over there, and I want the other side. Which I can't see. There we go. I think that's it. Okay, now let's get these parts in alignment again. Whoa, 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 whoa. Unfortunately, these converter units are very, very, very heavy. So, this thing does have a tendency to spin a little bit. Up, 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 and left, which means I have to hit the right and the up, which makes no sense, but And that's not really something I can change in the settings either, so a little bit irritating. Okay, and roll to get that part aligned. Good. Okay, and now we go to linear controls to fix our positioning. These things are also very heavy, so this thing does not stop very much, very slowly, which is a little bit dangerous and worrying, but I'm sure we'll persevere. Now, I think the way that circular objects in space kind of go, you want to have 3 solar panels arrayed around it at any particular point. Ooh, we need to be going backwards a bit. We want to be slowing our approach to it. Slightly going away would be good as well, because we're still working things out. Okay, and now we need to go up. Okay, looking good. Yeah, I had lights on the previous units I've tried to dock to this thing, but I think they mostly just blinded me as to what I was looking at more than anything else, so we don't have any on these. But we do have some on the crew quarters, which lights up this top docking section. Okay, and down we go. Okay, and we can also see that our velocity has aimed quite nicely towards the piece that we're at. Okay, so distance is 16. SAS off. Enable target. Shift that light. Okay, and it's now out of my hands, so here goes nothing. 11, 10, 9, let's speed this up a little bit, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, we should be getting into dragging territory soon, 4, 3, 2, 1, docked, perfect! Not a single worry. Well, at least not from it anyways. Okay, so now, to get that back on, now we have a massive reserve of power, and if we ever get any Kethane in here, which we should be able to because it's one of the main purposes of this thing, we can use the heavy converter units to convert them into 2 different things simultaneously, or 1 thing very quickly. And we will never have to worry about the power, which these things would otherwise eat like nothing imaginable. So, that is perfect. So, Kethane is now our main kind of product here, because we can make it to liquid fuel, oxidized and monopropellant, which is what we're using in our LCS, and xenon, which is used for ion drives, which are a very, very power-hungry version of transport. And we also have the Keefe-electric reactor, so if for whatever reason we either lose the solar panels, or we're behind the sun for like, well, we're behind Kerbin or whatever for absolute ages, then we can use Kethane as a power supply, and this one's very, very efficient, I found. But even then, we have enough to be there for like months. Perfect. Okay, so we have 1 more unit, which is Kerbals and Melwyn here. I love the name Kerbals. He's not the bravest guy, and he's actually also quite stupid, but I couldn't pass up a guy called Kerbals. That's just perfect. Okay, so control from there. CS and SAS on. Can I reach the docking port from here? Nope, so for now, we will turn around and just aim for it. Now this is also a bit of a tank. And given its weight, I also don't particularly want to be ramming the station that much, but it does have lights on it, so that's something. But not much, and they mostly only serve to illuminate these winches for EVA, but they're there either ways. And I think once we're docked, we'll have one of them get out and inspect everything. But first, let's just actually get to docking. Okay, there it is. That's what I want. And okay, so rotate this way. The good news about this thing is that it's very stable once it gets into its positioning. as long as I can remember that it is inverted on one and not the other. Okay, and then rotate. Good, right there. And there, good. Okay, and let's zero in our velocity a little bit and get one of those in. Move our velocity from this equation. Okay, move that back. Now we should start to see the lights on there fairly soon, but first we just need to worry about getting things aligned. Now, having this docking alignment thing makes this a lot easier, because if you don't have it, it's more or less guesswork. You're viewing it from behind and hoping that you're on alignment, and that's really not possible if you have something that isn't essentially a tube. Like, if you have a plane, it gets a lot harder. Okay, we're doing nicely there. Oh dear. Oh, that's not good. I ran out the electric charge. We can't control this thing anymore. I can't retract that anymore. Oh, it's because we're behind the sun, that's why. This thing doesn't have huge batteries, so we're now behind the sun and floating away from KGS-1. Yeah, we're in a Kerbal eclipse here. Not good, okay. Right, well, our velocity relative to the port is negative. A very small amount, but an amount. So we should be okay for not running into that thing. So let's just fast forward through the night, and until we have charge back at least. We should be getting the sunlight now. There we go. Okay. And now we have control again. So let's aim for KGS-1 and thrust. Fortunately, we have a lot of monopropellant, so we don't need to worry too much about that. Okay. And that's, yeah. But I really wish this target thing reticule would say plus or minus, because it's really hard to tell otherwise. Okay, we've got plenty of fuel. In testing, I've managed to dock these things with absolute tons of fuel. Almost literally, tons of fuel left. Let's turn those lights off so we don't drain power again. Okay, so that's 11.1 meters per second. So we should hopefully see that go down soon. This gets us a little bit. That's a little task, which I'm going to deal with at some point soon. Okay, 3, 2 meters, there we go. That's wonderful. And I need to delay it to not be thrusting towards it at any speed. So just go to miss it. Stop. Cancel. Okay, just my luck. I'm docking this solar-powered unit to the station, and we get a Kerbal eclipse. Lovely. As only Kerbal Space Program can deliver. Right. So, let's thrust upwards. And then hopefully I can get in range enough to point myself the right way. I can't quite make out what this thing looks like. I could try using my lights, I guess. Okay, so we hit a little bit of a snag, and Kerbals and Melwyn in there were a little bit worried. There was one other mod that I was considering adding before I did this, which is, I think it was a crew management mod. I'm not positive what its name was exactly, but it basically adds life support to these modules. So you have to have power and such for them to have oxygen CO2 scrubbing, which allows them to actually breathe. But I think we'll leave that for now, and wait until we actually have something that can support life that long. Well, I suppose in theory you could just add enough of these radioisotope generators onto it. because those run forever, and you can't even turn them off, so. Which is a little bit worrying, because they're effectively nuclear power. Okay. Okay, I've got an idea. Well, that's what I want. Set. Thank you. Okay, and let's get back to this. So, 0, 0, good, rotate, have the correct orientation, and bring one of those down to 0, okay, and let's get one of these up properly. Okay, there she is, looking nice. Okay, that is one component of our orientation done. Let's get the other one. You can see us nicely moving into position there, that's good. Now I've tried to avoid using action groups on this, but I had to assign one to set all of these to disable their key controls. I just, for fun and profit, added that to the controls for the lights and whatnot. Okay, we appear to be nicely set up there. So let's get back to thrusting forward and disable the SASs. SASI? I don't know. It's not a huge issue. Okay, and we are now down to purely linears, so here's hoping that this is successful. Once again, this thing's very heavy, so its orientation shouldn't change too much. Although I am mildly worried about it smashing into something and causing some damage. I'm not actually sure which one these guys are in. Oh yes, they're in the ray compartment. Nope, nope, nope. Okay, stay on target. This is almost easier when you have a heavy payload like this, because the orientation isn't going to change much as you're zeroing in on things. Such is the hope, anyways. Okay, 3, 2, stay on target, 1. We have magnet. Yes! Hurrah! We are now perfectly controlled, which means I can turn the lights on, and I can extend that solar panel, and everyone, welcome to what is presently KGS-1. Alright. And now because there's 3, as I believe I was saying before we lost power, because there's 3 now, you've basically got always one direction that has full exposure to the sun. Provided, of course, that you're not behind the planet like that. But when we are, we don't have to worry too much, because we've got huge battery supplies, as well as the Kethane electric generator and these radioisotopes. So, this thing is now fully supported. Lovely, lovely. So, let's take a look at how people are in here. Kerbals is a little bit concerned, it seems, but I don't know why. And if I tap on the window, yeah, we can see the rocket there. That's lovely. Okay, and let's have Kerbals go on an EVA, shall we? Where is he? I can't see him, actually. There he is. Okay, let's turn your lights on, shall we? Okay, and let's grab one of these connectors and let go. Okay. Looking nice, KGS-1. Yeah, that looks very nice, I'd say. So we still need one more unit onto this to make this whole thing as stable as we possibly can, and then this thing will be more or less ready to get pulled out into its proper geosynchronous orbit. Oh, look at that power unit, that looks pretty nice. Ideally, if you were making this with a bit more playing than I tend to do, you would have these units be symmetrical to evenly distribute the weight better. So instead of having one of these converter units, you'd have these batteries. But I don't have that, so meh, that's not a big thing to be concerned about. Yep, and we have support for quite a bit of Kethane. Let's, okay, well, let's just simulate someone who's run out of jetpack fuel, shall we? And go back to here, where Melwyn is presently the only person on board, but that's fine, because we have plenty of computer controls. Okay, let's show the GUI on that. Turn off release. So he is now no longer floating away. And let's bring him back in, shall we? I should probably name one of these, but it's not really that big of an issue. Okay, so there's Melwyn. Well, there's Kerbals, I should say. Melwyn's the guy that's still on board. And he's very slowly coming back in. One thing I have learned from testing is that if you have a Kerbal carrying a connector like that, and he goes into one of these pods. I don't know if this is exactly true of every pod, but it's true of the ones that I've tested. Whoop. Yep, there he is. Okay, we're fine, we're fine. And there he is. The problem I found is that... Whoop, there he is, okay. Let's re-engage that, okay, perfect. The problem I found is that if you have them still holding on to one of those and they go inside of here, then the connector sort of vanishes even though the system thinks it's still attached, which can cause some issues. So let's have him go in here. Okay, and move up, and in you go. Perfect, that's everybody in. Let's re-engage SAS, that's why it's wobbling. Okay, and let us rotate this some. So that we can get it properly aligned. And we shall call it a day there. So if you have any ideas on what we should put into that 4th unit slot, by all means, mention them in the comments. I have a couple of ideas, but I don't know how well they'll bear out. Oop, nope, that's where we want to stop. Okay, so now that we have these 4 on their different orientations, there's always going to be at least one of them that can point directly at the sun, which is perfect. Okay, and we'll stop it there. Okay, and I think meanwhile I'll also fly out a small ship of some kind that will have its own dismantleable docking port to put into there, and add some Kethane to that storage so we can get things going. But that is the beginning of KGS-1, and it's going to be our main launching pad from, well, our jumping off point, I should say, to our next destination, which is right over there, but it's quite a ways away. So, you see, that's Ike, and that is the moon at an altitude of 11,400 kilometers. Whereas KGS-1 is an altitude of 2. So, bit of a problem. Bit of a distance to cover. And the last thing around here is no longer actually around here. Too far away. And there it is. Is that thing actually already on a distance that we can start getting it to go down? No, it's got a while before it hits that. Whoopsies. Anyways, that is it for now. I shall catch you next time. Catch you later. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and or a favourite. Follow me on Twitter and subscribe to be notified of future updates. You can also check out the website where most other content is uploaded. That's all for now. Catch you later.